I started meditating, I think about a decade ago now, and ever since I started, I've always had it as an aspiration to do it 10 minutes every day. In this video, I will first make my case for why I think meditation is worth trying out, and then I will give some tips and advice on how to get started if you don't know what to do. If you've never really tried meditation, hopefully this video can convince you. On the other hand, if you already have a practice, then I hope you'll find this video convincing enough that you will be able to use it if you ever run into someone who you think would benefit from it. If you're new here, my name is Jarle, and Early Owl is about trying to improve the quality of our life by improving the quality of our mind. So I just first wanted to go a bit into what I mean and don't mean when I talk about meditation. So when I'm talking about meditation here, mostly what I'm talking about is mindfulness. I think for a lot of people, meditation is still very much entwined with religion or spirituality or mysticism. I just want to say that my meditation practice has always been completely secular, and you don't have to give meditation any mystical properties to see benefits from it. When I meditate, it is a very deliberate and a very aware practice. Another thing I recommend a lot on this channel is taking breaks, like taking walks where you just let your mind wander. And I think other experiences in that vein might be like getting into flow while you're doing something creative or doing a sport. And while I think all of these things are helpful and can have similar benefits as meditation, I almost think of them as the opposite of meditation. Those activities are more about just turning down your awareness and getting lost either in your thoughts or in what's going on. Whereas meditation is more the opposite, where you turn up your awareness and you don't get lost in anything. So why we should meditate? I think the first reason, which is kind of obvious and starting to be pretty well accepted, is that meditation does something. It's definitely not perfectly researched and we understand everything about it, but there are enough research papers on it that show some tangible benefit, be that in reducing stress or dealing with anxiety or countless other things, that we now know that there is something more than nothing to meditating. There's even some studies which suggest that long-term practitioners see actual physiological changes, be that in their brain or their immune system or how their body handles pain. Another reason why I think meditation is obviously worth considering is if you read interviews or listen to podcasts like the Tim Ferriss Show, where they seek out high performers in pretty much all sorts of fields like high-level CEOs or athletes or creative people at the top of their respective areas, then you will see an overrepresentation of people who meditate or have some form of mindfulness practice. And I'm not trying to make the case that meditation is why they become successful, but I think it's more just the fact that when you reach a position where your performance and your mental state is incredibly important, either because your decisions can impact a massive company or because you're competing at the highest level and every tiny gain you can make is important, it makes perfect sense that people who are in these positions put a lot more effort into figuring out what works when it comes to improving their own performance. And that becomes a pretty good explanation for why meditation seems to be much more common in these areas. Lastly, I have a strong intuition that trying out meditation just makes completely rational sense, and I just want to make the case for that. I think everyone will recognize that the mind is incredibly important in our day-to-day life. Everything you decide to do and everything you feel is the world filtered through your mind. So if we accept that premise, it should be clear that if we can make even very minor improvements to our mind and how it interprets things, then that can lead to positive ramifications in basically everything else in our life. And the next step from there, which again just seems completely intuitive to me, is that it is possible to make a conscious decision to influence our mind. We aren't just helplessly chained to our mind. Whatever mind we're born with is how we are, and there's no way to make any impact on that whatsoever. At least it's one of my core beliefs that your mind is malleable, and to change your life for the better, you need to change your mind for the better. Now, I'm not saying meditation is the only way to change your mind. You can change it by doing other habits, you can do it by reading, you can do it by other methods like CBT or hypnosis or God knows what else. It just seems like meditation is one of the ones that are easiest to do. It has a very long track record of people saying it has improved their life. And there's an increasing body of evidence showing that it does actually have some positive effects. I got a quote or a proverb from a friend of mine. It goes something like, if you have the time, you should meditate 10 minutes a day. And if you don't have the time, you should meditate 20 minutes. There is the obvious implication here, which is that if you lead a more stressful or a more busy life, then the benefits from meditation is more relevant to you. But I think this also applies to the experienced difficulty of meditation, where if you're just starting out and you've never done anything like meditation before, just sitting still for a couple of minutes and being alone with your mind can be really difficult. But I think the fact that it's difficult for some people to just be still with their mind for a couple of minutes is a red flag for why doing something like meditation is valuable. Finally, I think it just comes down to a cost-benefit analysis, where the cost of meditation is basically 10 minutes or even less a day, whereas there is a long list of potential benefits for meditation. Just to summarize the benefits in one simple term, I think it comes down to awareness. Meditation trains you to observe what is going on with you. And if you're actually paying attention to it, emotions such as anger or jealousy don't really last very long. What tends to happen is that you get lost in them, and instead of just paying attention to what is happening and how it makes you feel, you just think about the thing that made you angry over and over, and that is how you can get lost in that cycle and just have it reinforce itself continually. Now, I'm not saying meditation has to be for everyone. I'm just saying if you haven't really tried it out, and by that I mean doing it every day for a period of about a month, then you absolutely should try it out, because the costs are small, the benefits are large, and a lot of people are saying it's helped them. I also think depending on how your life is going right now should inform you on how important it is to try out meditation. If you're already quite satisfied with your life, you don't have a tendency to get stuck in negative thought loops, and you don't have any problems just being still with your mind, then while it's still a good idea to try out meditation, it's probably not super important that you do either. On the other hand, if you struggle a lot with anxiety or stress, and you have a recurring tendency to get stuck in negative thought loops or have spiraling negative emotions, and just being alone with your mind is really hard, then that should be a pretty big indicator that trying out things like meditation and anything else that might help improve your mindset is something you should put a lot of effort into. Okay, so next I just want to give some tips on how to meditate and where to start. First, if you aren't completely convinced yet, I would just recommend a book called 10% Happier by Dan Harris. It covers the journey of a journalist who used to be like a war correspondent, and then he became a news anchor, and he just lived a very stressful life and was tail spinning a bit because of that. At first, he tried to solve his problems with drugs and alcohol, which didn't go too great. And then he found meditation, and he's now become basically a meditation evangelist. It's an easy and fun read, but it also gives you a clear insight for how meditation can lead to benefits in your life. To give some more general tips, I think it's fine to start small with meditation. As with all habits, it's helpful to just take baby steps in terms of building it up. So instead of starting to do 10 minutes a day of meditation, if you have a problem sticking to that, you can start with 5 minutes a day or 2 minutes a day or whatever. But I will say, before I will give you the pass of saying meditation is not for you, I would recommend a minimum of 1 month with 10 minutes a day. When you're trying out meditation, you just need to go in with no expectations at all. You shouldn't sit down and expect to feel some kind of revelation or to do it and then come out of it with like some magical superpowers. The main benefits of meditation is more just nudging your mind a tiny little bit in the right direction. Another thing about meditation is you need to not worry about success or failure or doing it right. The main thing is just believing in the process and trying. The final thing I will recommend is the app I use to meditate, which is Waking Up. There is a couple of reasons why I recommend this. First of all, it has a 20-day introductory course on the app, which basically is for anyone who's never meditated before. And it gives you guided meditations that kind of ramp up and tries different things over the course of 28 days to give you a good introduction for what meditation is. The other reason, which is why I use it, is that it has a new meditation every day, which even though you can meditate with just a timer, and that's completely fine and there's nothing wrong with that, I just find that the novelty of getting a new guided meditation every day just makes it slightly easier to do it every day. And the last reason I recommend it is that it is a completely free app for anyone who wants it to be. The listed price tag of $10 to $15 a month is maybe a bit expensive for some people, but they have a completely legitimate policy where anyone who wants it can get it for free just by asking. And I want to emphasize that this policy is something that is for anyone who feels like $15 is something that they need to make a financial decision about. So if you're thinking that you would like to try out this app, but You wouldn't feel right asking for the free version because you can technically afford it, but you would also not like to spend $15 on it, then this free offer is still perfectly intended for you. The paid option is for anyone who feels like they can spend $15 a month on it without noticing it or making any other sacrifices. I will link to the app and where you can get the free version in the description. Meditation is one of the habits I try to maintain every day. I will link to a playlist here that goes through some of the other habits and how I apply them to my life. So that is what I have to say about meditation. Hopefully I convinced some of you to give it a shot if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Wednesday.